Welcome to another GED math video. I am Jillian. I am a GED instructor at Woodford County and Jessamine County Adult Education here in Kentucky. And today we're going to be talking about solving multi-step or two-step equations. We'll start with two, but with this information, you can go on to solve equations with infinite numbers of steps. So we're building on the last video where we talked about just solving one-step equations. And I wanted to just make sure we're all on the same page with some vocabulary before we get started. So the first vocabulary word that we'll be using a lot during this lesson is variable. The variable is just the unknown number or the letter in an equation. So if an equation is x plus 4 equals 19, x is the variable. It doesn't have to be x, it could be any letter, but a lot of times it's x. All right, next one is inverse operations. This is just talking about opposite operations. So the four main operations in math are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And they're sort of two sets of opposites. So addition and subtraction are opposites, and multiplication and division are opposites. So those are inverse operations. So for example, when we have an equation like this one up here, where we're adding 4, the way to get rid of that 4 or to undo that operation is to subtract 4 on both sides of the equal sign. And then you end up with x equals 15. Okay? And then same thing with multiplication and division. The final term that I want everybody to be on board with is order of operations. The order of operations is just the order that you do these four operations in a problem. So a lot of people remember this with a sentence like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or with a word, which is PEMDAS. But regardless, your order of operations is parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. This is what order we do our operations. So if we have like 4 plus 3 times 2, we follow our order of operations to do multiplication first and then the addition. So it would be 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4 is 10. So we don't just work left to right. We do it in the order that the operations ought to be in. Okay, so let's start looking at some two-step equations. Let's start with p divided by 2 plus 4 equals, we'll say 10. Okay, p divided by 2 plus 4 equals 10. Here's our equation. So before now, we were just looking at equations that only had one operation. So they would only have division or only have addition. But now we're going to look at equations where on this side of the equal sign, and maybe on this side too, there are more than one operation. So here in this equation, we have division, p divided by 2, and we have addition, a plus 4, okay? When we look at a problem like this, the way that we solve this is by doing inverse operations. So ultimately, we're going to subtract out this 4 and multiply out this 2. But just like when we're solving an expression, and we follow the order of operations, we're going to sort of do that when we solve this problem. The only difference is that we're going to go backwards. So we decide what order we would normally solve this in. So for example, if I were solving this equation, I would divide first, and then I would add, and then to solve the equation, I follow it backwards. So I take care of this addition first, and then this division second. Okay, so let's see how that kind of works out. So we say order of operations backwards. Okay, so our first step to solve this problem would be to divide and then to add. So to unsolve the problem or to find out what P equals, we're first going to get rid of this addition and then get rid of the division. Okay, so how do we get rid of a plus 4? Well, we do the inverse operation and we subtract 4. So we can do it just like we did before. We subtract 4 on both sides of the equal sign to keep things even, to keep our balance. And we end up canceling out this 4. So then we have P divided by 2 equals, and 10 minus 4 is 6. Okay, and then we can take care of our division. So now we're in familiar territory. We've basically got a one-step equation. So divided by 2, the inverse of that is times 2. So we can do that on either side. And P divided by 2 times 2, those cancel out and leaves us with P. 6 times 2 is 12, so P equals 12. And if we were to come back up here and substitute that 12 for P, we would have 12 divided by 2 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So we're good. We did it. All right, let's look at another problem. Okay, we'll hope that this doesn't result in a big decimal. All right, so here we have 3 times x minus 5 equals 3. Okay, so normally if we were solving this problem, we would first multiply and then subtract. So to solve the equation, we do it backwards. We're going to take care of the subtraction first. So we add 5 to both sides. So a negative 5 plus 5 cancel each other out. So now we have 3x equals, and we have 5 plus 3, which is 8. And now I'm going to have to use the calculator because I did a big decimal. All right. So now we have 3 times x equals 8. So how do we get rid of this 3? We do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division, divided by 3. And we're going to do that on both sides. So 3 times x divided by 3, those cancel out, leaves us with x. And 8 divided by 3 is, oh, that's not too bad, is 2 2/3. 2 2/3. Okay, so x equals 2 2/3. Let's do some practice with this. Let me just move my face a little bit. Oh shoot, that's not what I wanted to do. Bear with me, please. All right. All right. So we've got some examples, some simpler, some less simple. Let me move myself again, of some multi-step equations. So let's take a look at them. Now we have 10 on the screen. You don't have to sit there and watch me do all 10. In fact, I would encourage you to, if you feel like you've got the hang of this from just the descriptions that I already gave you, pause the video here. I'm going to work through each of these individually, fast forward to the end, and see how you did compared to what I have written down on the screen. If you're not sure, watch a couple and then pause. And then if you get some wrong, you can always rewind back to the part in the video where I answer that question. Okay? All right, so let's look at number 1 here. Let's solve in blue just so it shows up a little bit better. Okay, so we have 6 equals a divided by 4 plus 2. So just like before, we're going to deal with this addition first because in solving the problem, it's the thing we did last. So to find what a equals, we have to get rid of this addition right here. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides of this equation. So 6 minus 2 is 4. Plus 2 minus 2 cancel each other out. So we have a over 4. That's an a. Okay, so now we have divided by 4. So we're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. And we end up with 4 times 4 is 16. And a divided by 4 times 4 is a. So 16 equals a, or a equals 16 for this first one. All right. Let's look over here at number 2. Here we have -6 plus x divided by 4 equals -5. So once again, we're going to start with this addition, and we're going to subtract -6 from both sides. Okay, so these two cancel each other out. -5 minus -6 is 1. So we have x over 4 left on this side and 1 on this side. So x divided by 4 equals 1. So we can multiply both sides by 4, but you might be knowing what this one is already. And we end up with, these two cancel out, 1 times 4 is 4. So x equals 4. Okay. All right, how about this one? 9 times x minus 7 equals -7. So we're going to start by getting rid of this subtraction because it's the last thing we would do in our order of operations. So we add 7 on both sides. So 9 times x minus 7 plus 7, that's just 9x. -7 plus 7 is 0. So now this one, again, is getting kind of obvious here, but we'll still divide. So we'll do 9 times x divided by 9 and 0 divided by 9. And we end up with x equals 0. Okay, I'll put that out to the side. All right. Okay. Here we have another 0. 0 equals 4 times n divided by 5. Once again, we get rid of that 4 first, so we subtract 4 on both sides. And this side, 0 minus 4 is -4. These two cancel out, so we have n over 5. All right, so n divided by 5, to get rid of that, we multiply by 5 on both sides. And we end up with -4 times 5, I'm going to put it up here, is -20. And n divided by 5 times 5 is n. So -20 equals n. All right, let's look at this one. -4 equals r divided by 20 minus 5. Okay, so once again, we're kind of falling into a pattern here. We're going to take care of our subtraction first. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. So -4 plus 5 is 1. R divided by 20 minus 5 plus 5 is just R divided by 20. All right, so now we're going to get rid of this divided by 20 by multiplying by 20 on both sides again. And we end up with 1 times 20 is 20. R divided by 20 times 20 is R. So 20 equals R. Okay. All right. This one and the next two are a little, they kind of throw a wrench in things. So we're going to kind of work through these ones. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments or comment on our Facebook page or email or whatever, and we'll work with you on those. And if I have to make a separate video, I will. All right, so if we think about our order of operations for this problem, we have 5 plus x divided by 6. Well, if I were going to solve this problem, I would first add 5 plus x and then divide by 6. So what that means, as we're working this problem backwards, we're going to take care of this divided by 6 first. So because this is on top of a fraction, it's almost like it's in parentheses. It's in a grouping. It's in a group where you do that first. Okay, so for this one, we're going to first take care of this divided by 6 and then take care of the plus 5. Okay, so we have a divided by 6, so we're going to multiply by 6 on both sides. And -1 times 6 is -6. And 5 plus x divided by 6 times 6, those cancel out. So it's just 5 plus x now. Okay? So now we're going to subtract out the 5 from both sides. And we end up with -11 equals x. So those two cancel out. Okay? Now we have another one just like that right here. So once again, because in this problem, we would be dividing last, or adding first and then dividing. When we solve it, we're going to divide first and then add. So we're going to first get rid of this division by multiplying by 3. And we end up with v plus 9, because those two cancel, equals 8 times 3 is 24. Okay? And now we deal with that addition. So we subtract out that 9 from both sides. And we end up with v equals 15. Put it out here. Okay? All right. So normally, if you have multiplication and division and addition and subtraction in the same problem, you're going to solve for the addition and subtraction first, and then the multiplication and division. It's just every once in a while, you'll get one of these funky problems like this. Okay? All right. And this is one more kind of funky one that we'll work through together. All right, so this one we have a parentheses, and we cannot solve what is inside of this parentheses. So what we can do, one way that we can figure this out is we can use the distributive property. We can distribute this 2 across everything that's in the parentheses. Okay, so we can say 2 times n is 2n. 2 times 5 is 10. And we can rewrite the problem like this to be 2 times n plus 10 equals -2. Now, I guess we could have used the distributive property up here too. But it's just so much more common to see it with multiplication. So if we see a number next to a parentheses like this that's multiplying, this is actually multiplying this 2 times n plus 5 is the same as 2 times n plus 2 times 5. Okay, so those are equivalent. So that's what we've done down here. So once again, if we feel like we need a little refresher on the distributive property, we can do that. We can do that in another video. But for now, we'll start with this one right here. So once again, we're going to then subtract out the 10. So subtract out 10 from both sides, and we end up with 2n. Those cancel out. -2 minus 10 is -12. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we end up with n equals -6. All right, now we're back to some normal ones again. So these 3 are kind of next level questions, but these last 2 are kind of back to where we started at. All right, so we have -9 times x plus 1 equals -80. So first we're going to get rid of that 1, -1, -1. So we're getting real tiny down here. All right, these cancel out. So this turns into -81. We have -9x equals -81. So we're going to divide both sides. So I don't have space to write it, but we'll just say we divide both sides. So -9x divided by 9, divided by -9 is just x. -81 divided by -9 is a +9. Okay, so x equals 9. And this final question, n divided by 2 minus 10 equals negative 6. We're going to first add 10 on both sides. Getting so teeny tiny. All right, so then we have negative 6 plus 10 is 4. And over 2. All right, these two cancel. So it's 4 equals n divided by 2. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2 now. So 4 times 2 is 8. N divided by 2 times 2 is n. 8 equals n. All right, if you need more practice on this, I'll link some worksheets and stuff below that you can do from home. And if you have questions, again, leave them in the comments or send us an email and I'll send you some more detailed instructions, or I'll direct you to a better explanation on that stuff. But otherwise, enjoy your math. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.